Tonight, we go inside Tehran's hospitals, overwhelmed with the injured, as Israel and the United States continue their bombardment. Iran says more than 1,400 people have been killed since the war began. In the capital, a mother demands answers from Donald Trump.
Why did this happen to us, to innocent people, my innocent 4-year-old girl? They've taken away our safety, our happiness, and the health of our children.
We'll bring you Dominique's exclusive report coming up, plus as Israel's military assassinates one of Iran's most powerful leaders. In Washington, a shock resignation with Israel blamed for misleading the US president. We'll put that accusation to the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. We'll also ask what happened at this drug rehab center in Kabul. The Taliban says 400 people were killed in a Pakistani missile strike. Coming up, we'll bring you former President Hamid Karzai's message to the warring neighbours and to Iran. And could Scotland become the first country in the UK to legalise assisted dying? We'll be live in Edinburgh ahead of a crucial vote. That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. Sometimes I start with a question, and there are a few pressing ones tonight. Who's really in charge of the war against Iran? Is it the United States? Is it Israel? Did America really act because of an imminent threat? And who decides when it all ends and how it ends? That's a lot, I know. So I'm going to use these two men to show you just how confusing and muddled this all is. Ali Larijani was the head of Iran's National Security Council. Joe Kent was America's top counter-terror official until a few hours ago. Well, let's start with Mr. Larijani. He was at the center of power in Iran, the man who was holding everything together and directing the war, now assassinated by Israel, part of their plan to lay the ground for a people's revolt.
We're undermining this regime in the hope of giving the Iranian people a chance to remove it. It will not happen all at once, it will not happen easily. But if we persist in this, we will give them a chance to take their fate into their own hands.
And what about Joe Kent? Well, until today, he was viewed as one of the MAGA faithful. He saw combat 11 times. He was a CIA officer. His wife was killed in an Islamic State terror attack, and he held a key intelligence post. So you'd expect him to know what pushed Donald Trump to go to war. But I just want to read you some of his resignation letter. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, he wrote. It's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Addressing the president, he said, this echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that, should you strike now, there was clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie. And just have a look at Donald Trump and how he responded.
They've been a threat for a long time. You would have had nuclear holocaust, and you would have had it again if we didn't bomb the site. So when somebody is working with us that says they didn't think Iran was a threat, we don't want those people.
Well, that was Donald Trump. We'll focus more on those two men coming up, but I just want to give you a start with a grieving mother in Tehran and her message to Donald Trump. Zeba's 4-year-old daughter is in a coma after an airstrike on her home. Today, our international affairs editor, Dominique Waghorn, walked through an overwhelmed hospital dealing with hundreds of casualties and heard from families in mourning. Here's his exclusive report from inside the capital about the civilians caught up in this war.
4-year-old Anita was pulled out of the rubble last week after an airstrike destroyed her home. She's in a coma with severe head injuries. Her mother, Zeba, is in torment. Doctors say Anita is unlikely to survive. She was playing with her brother, Artem, when the missile came in, leaving him with multiple injuries. It was terrifying, he says.
We were on the stairs, me and my sister. Suddenly everything went black. I didn't understand what happened next. I didn't hear a sound, nothing. I thought I was dreaming.
A family destroyed by America and Israel's air campaign, Zeba had this message for their leaders.
Why did this happen to us, to innocent people, my innocent 4-year-old girl who was only going downstairs to come to me? Why do it to ordinary people like us? We were sitting at home together. They've taken away our safety, our happiness and the health of our children.
It isn't hard to see why many civilians are being hurt when you come to places like this, where airstrikes are hitting targets in residential areas. The impact of the firepower unleashed here is hard to take in, and residents told us these were civilian apartment blocks.
Local residents say a security organisation of some sort was based somewhere in all this. But I guess the point to make is that targeting that has ended up with pretty much an entire city block being devastated. The Iranians say 40 people died here. It's not clear how many of them were civilians and how many were members of that organisation.
Sayed showed us the floor his 35-year-old daughter had been at home on when the airstrike destroyed the building. Another family torn apart by this war.
Whoever has caused this, and it's 100% Trump and Netanyahu, I wish the same thing would happen to them. You have no idea what suffering I have been through for a week, day and night.
We crossed town after reports of more airstrikes. Nowhere is safe here, even in daylight in the centre of town.
It's a pretty jittery mood here after these reports of Ali Larijani, the top security official, being assassinated, and the top paramilitary commander, but also the fact that there was an airstrike in this square this morning on security force vehicles right in the middle of the Iranian capital. We've got this sort of daily show of defiance, this parade with Iranian flags and chanting, but also today we've seen a lot more security on the streets, and Iranians are being urged not to come out tonight for the annual fireworks night ahead of Persian New Year at the end of the week, presumably because people, the fear is, could come out and there could be more unrest.
This is the last time we saw Ali Larijani last Friday. His reported killing only escalates this war. It will almost certainly provoke a more hardline response from Iran. The conflict is deepening and more innocent civilians will, without doubt, pay the price. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Tehran.
So now that Iran has confirmed Ali Larijani is dead, Dominic has this analysis from inside Iran on what could happen next.
The death of Ali Larijani has sent shockwaves across the Iranian capital here. Quite literally, some of us felt the impact of massive explosions in the early hours this morning, which were presumably the bombs, possibly bunker-busting bombs that assassinated him. Now, he was a very high-level target. He was one of the first officials to come out and confirm the death of the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. He was a negotiator going back decades. He was the Speaker of the Parliament, and he was one of the sort of most senior security officials most recently. It's fair to say that few officials really understood how the Iranian state operated as well as Ali Larijani. So he is a big loss to the Iranians, and the Israelis will say, therefore, it was worth taking him out. And they will say it will hasten the end of the Iranian regime, as they call it, which is one of their war aims. Having said that, the Iranians have built into their institutions of government resilience, and every person who's killed is replaced by a successor who's previously appointed, and then they're replaced by another one, and so on. And so he's not irreplaceable. The other point to make about Ali Larijani is if there was anybody who could help the West and the Iranians negotiate a way out of this crisis, no efforts towards that end yet. But if there was, then it would be Ali Larijani. He's somebody who's negotiated with the Gulf, he's negotiated with the West during the nuclear discussions years ago. And if there was anybody the Americans could do business with to bring this to an end, as they have with figures in Venezuela, it would have been someone like Ali Larijani. So his assassination makes that less likely.
That was our Dominic Waghorn reporting there from Tehran. Now, it's probably helpful to remind you about who's actually running Iran. The supreme leader was assassinated at the start of the war and was replaced by his son, who's reportedly injured and has not been seen in public. Other high-ranking leaders, like the Secretary of Iran's Defense Council, The defense minister and the commander of Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, are all dead. Israel also says the commander of the voluntary Basij paramilitary forces responsible for Iran's crackdown on civilians was killed alongside Ali Larijani. So who's left? Well, Iran's president and chief justice are both still alive, but the country's senior leadership has been decimated. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi has this report.
The intensity of the bombardment of Iran is unrelenting. Tactically, the US and Israel are continuing to hit the regime hard. These images show the aftermath of a strike on what's been reported as a weapons depot near Shiraz. In Tehran, the pounding has also continued. This was a central square in the capital, struck in the ongoing attacks. And these pictures, released by US Central Command, show military vehicles hidden in woodland being destroyed by a series of airstrikes. The most significant blow, if confirmed, is the killing of two of the regime's most senior figures. Israel's military claims it's eliminated security official Ali Larijani, along with Gholam Reza Soleimani, the commander of the Basij, in what it calls precision strikes. If Larijani has been killed, it would be a major shock to the regime. A close associate of former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, he was a core insider, part of the inner circle that helped steer Iran's decisions, strategy and response. He was last seen at the Al-Quds Day parade just days ago on the streets of Tehran, where he delivered this message for the US president.
The problem with Trump is that he is not intelligent enough to understand that Iranians are a mature and strong and determined nation. The more pressure he exerts, the stronger our nation's willpower will become.
If he has been killed, the impact will be felt beyond government offices, across the entire system that relies on figures like him to hold it together.
There is cooperation between our Air Force and Navy, between me and President Trump and his people. We will help with both indirect attacks, which create tremendous pressure on the Iranian regime, and also with direct actions. There are many more surprises. We will make war with tricks. We will not reveal the tricks here, but I told you, there are many.
The impact of his death will be profound, but the Iranian regime is far from collapse. Fighting an asymmetric guerrilla-style war with its military and allies dispersed, it continues to resist. In Baghdad, the US embassy on fire again after multiple attacks. No casualties were reported. This video shows a drone tracking towards the embassy as people look on. Anti-aircraft fire is heard as the military try to take it down. But despite the pain across the region, Donald Trump insists the war was the only way to stop Iran from getting the bomb.
They got a nuclear weapon. I would say they would have used it within 24 hours after having it. And they would have had it if we didn't bomb them out from that great raid with the B-2 bombers 8 months ago or so. You would have had a nuclear war in the Middle East and maybe beyond. I think it would have hit Europe.
How and when this war ends is unclear. Despite tactical successes, the US and Israeli strategy is still in question. They are demonstrating that they can still strike deep into Iran and target its leadership. But Iran and its allies remain undeterred, capable of striking across the region. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
Well, let's bring in now Mark Stone, who joins me live from Washington. Mark, we just heard there about the assassination of Ali Larijani. The Iranians have confirmed it. But I want to steer your attention to the director of National Counterterrorism Center resigning today. It really does give us an insight into, I guess, the MAGA faithful, the thinking right now around this conflict.
Yeah, it's a fascinating development, and it kind of has different layers. I mean, on the face of it, this is an official in counterterrorism, so he's very, very senior, who is exposing what he believes to be the real reason why America was drawn into this war. And it is Israel, in his view. And he says in his letter, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. So that undermines the legal justification for the conflict. And by the way, that is why the likes of the UK did not get involved, because they did not believe it was legal. So it kind of backs up the thinking in Europe and in the UK as well. And then he goes on to say, basically, that Trump was hoodwinked by the Israelis. Early in this administration, he says, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This is devastating stuff. In one sense, it backs up what Marco Rubio said right at the beginning of this conflict, was it 3 weeks ago now, where he kind of said the quiet stuff out loud, many people thought. He said, look, we're only doing this because we knew that Israel was going to attack and we knew we'd get hit back harder, so we had to get involved. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what Rubio said. But there's another layer to Joe Kent's resignation, and that is that he was as MAGA as they come. He was anti-interventionist. He was anti-America getting involved in foreign wars. He did not agree with American support for Ukraine. And he was also plainly anti-Israeli. And that much has been very clear through his career. He used to be a soldier. He was in the US military, served in Iraq and Afghanistan. His wife was in the military as well. She was killed in an ISIS attack in Syria, which he, in this letter, blames not on ISIS, but on Israel. So his views on Israel are very clear. That's important context. But does that detract from his core message, which is that Iran posed no immediate threat, imminent threat to the United States? That, I think, is a very important point. And I guess the other layer to all of this, Yalda, is that here we have a MAGA figure, someone who Trump appointed into the White House, who is now saying, I vehemently disagree with what you have done. Is this another chip away at the base, who at the moment are holding firm? But, you know, there are MAGA celebrities and now it seems MAGA officials who are deeply uneasy about what's going on. So really, really interesting stuff. Trump, Yalda, he's been in the White House today. He's there with the Taoiseach. The Irish Prime Minister is in town because it is St. Patrick's Day. Our own Ireland correspondent was in the Oval Office and asked him about what Dom was told yesterday in Tehran. That is that the Iranians believe that they are going to draw the Americans into another Vietnam. Here's what the president said.
The Iranian regime has told Sky News, if you put boots on the ground in Iran, it will be another Vietnam. Are you afraid of that?
No, I'm not afraid of, I'm really not afraid of anything.
So there you go. Not afraid, so says the American president. We should also mention, Yalda, that the Donald Trump has been stirring things a little like he likes to on issues Ireland as well, on the island of Ireland. He said in a later meeting, he said, I love mergers, as he spoke to officials from Northern Ireland and the Republic, seeming to suggest he might like a bit of unification on the island of Ireland. That would be the last thing Downing Street needs right now.
Yeah, indeed. Mark, thank you so much. Well, let's bring in Javed Ali, who was a senior US counterterrorism official in Donald Trump's first administration. Thank you so much, Mr. Ali, for joining us here on the programme. You heard their analysis from our correspondent, but I also just want to get your reaction to the resignation of the director of the National Counterterrorism Centre, Joe Kent.
So, Yalda, nice to be with you this evening. And interesting development, as Mark suggested, that Director Kent, or Joe Kent, is the first senior Trump administration official who was not only appointed by President Trump, but confirmed by the Senate to basically resign his position. And what Joe Kent claims is based on a disagreement over policy. Now, were there other factors underneath the surface that we don't know about? Potentially. But Joe Kent is claiming that this is a stand on principle and a disagreement over policy. I also worked in the National Counterterrorism Center for 3.5 years before I actually went to the White House. So I know very well what the organization does and its sort of day-to-day functions and how important that position is with the director. So just for all the things that Mark raised previously, a really interesting development in the context of the broader war going on right now.
Yeah, and the big talking point around this letter really is that Joe Kent is saying that he believes that there was no imminent threat from Iran. I guess the question is, what does imminent mean? You know, was there an imminent threat, or was this a window of opportunity that the United States and Israel saw and took?
Well, this is something that only officials in Israel and Washington are going to have the answer to from an intelligence perspective, because that is where that type of information is being collected and then assessed and analyzed. But we have heard from President Trump and other senior officials a series of different narratives about the justification for initiating the campaign on February 20th. It was at one time it was the fact that Iran was on the precipice of striking Israel, and then the U.S. thought, well, if Israel does that, then Iran would attack U.S. interests. So that's why the U.S. and Israel had to preemptively attack Iran. We've heard that theory. We've heard the theory about how Iran was getting closer to enriching uranium at higher levels, giving it more of a breakout capability to produce a crude nuclear weapon. And then we heard another narrative about Iran's ability to mass produce ballistic missiles and cruise missiles and drones at a higher rate. So all of those things the last 3 weeks have been out there as justifications. And even Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Kent's boss, the director of national intelligence, put out a statement today and said, based on the information that President Trump saw in the run-up to February 28th, that he deemed there was an imminent threat. So we've got all these different messages from all these senior figures in Washington. And right now, none of us know, was it truly, quote unquote, imminent, or was it just based on a totality of all the different issues that I just laid out?
Yeah, because it does feel, it was head spinning in those first few days, the number of different justifications that you've just talked us through. And we kept hearing that there is an imminent threat, but exactly what that imminent threat, as you say, behind closed doors, when members of Congress were briefed and in public. I mean, perhaps they don't want to reveal in public what intelligence they were seeing, but even those senators who were briefed say that they weren't actually given any information about what the imminent threat was. And increasingly we are seeing, and I'd like to get your take on this, the regime is becoming more and more hardened, and the one bit of intelligence that we are seeing is that, frankly, the regime isn't cracking, or we aren't seeing this regime impacted by, the heavy bombardment that we're seeing.
Well, when it comes to the stability of the regime in Iran, what we have seen is Israel and the United States, but mostly Israel when it comes to these leadership strikes, remove the upper echelon of Iran's clerical establishment and political establishment and military establishment. First with Ali Khamenei, other senior Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commanders, and now with Ali Larijani. And I would assess that his death is just as significant as Ali Khamenei's, because prior to Ali Khamenei's death and even months before, Ali Larijani had assumed the responsibility of organizing Iran's national security apparatus and enterprise to prepare for a future conflict with the U.S. and Israel. And then that broke out on February 28th. And then since February 28th, prior to today, he was the one day to day overseeing all of the different moving pieces in that, from both the conventional warfare side and the unconventional warfare side. So it's not clear who is going to replace Ali Larijani. There will be somebody to replace him, but will they be as capable, as trusted? And meanwhile, the IRGC looks like it is carrying out this very decentralized campaign where they're not asking for permission from the office of the supreme leader, perhaps even Ali Larijani. They are firing weapons across the region and hitting targets in different locations that we've seen. And this is the kind of pressure that the IRGC is trying to put on Israel and the United States, even though the leadership is being decimated.
Yeah. Javed Ali, really fascinating hearing your thoughts on the issue. Thank you very much for joining us here on the programme.
Thank you, Yalda.
Well, this is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come on the programme, reaction to claims Israel pushed America into the war in Iran. I speak to Israel's ambassador to the UN next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations. This is a huge moment. But what happens now? Now, welcome back to the programme. And I've just got some breaking news that's come in the last few minutes. It's about the Russian oligarch, Roman Abramovich, who, of course, also owned the football club Chelsea. And, of course, he changed the face of football with unrestrained spending before being sanctioned and forced to sell his team by the British government. He was accused of regularly breaking rules as he built the club. And the violations by this oligarch, Roman Abramovich, included tens of millions of dollars in off-the-book payments to players, coaches, executives, unlicensed agents and secret investments in players registered to other teams. A government spokesperson, British government spokesperson, has now said, we gave Roman Abramovich his last chance to do the right thing. Once again, he's failed to make the donation he committed. We'll now take further steps to ensure that the promises he made at the time of the Chelsea sale is kept. And so just to give you some background, there was expectation that he make some donations from the proceeds that he made, roughly £2.5 billion from the club sale into a new foundation for humanitarian purposes in Ukraine. So that dispute continues, and the British government now says they will sue Roman Abramovich. Now, I just want to return to that question that I posed at the top of the programme. Who is leading the war in Iran? After his high-profile resignation, former American counterterrorism chief Joe Kent accused Israel and its powerful lobby of misleading Donald Trump. I put that claim to Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon. Have a listen to my conversation.
Well, honestly, I'm not familiar with this individual and with this position, but, those allegations are ridiculous. President Trump, he has a very skillful team to analyze the intelligence and to guide him through the decision-maker process. And we also have the same mechanism. And we realize that we are not going to take chances with Iran. And now when you see them sending ballistic missiles to all the Gulf countries, to Israel, to Turkey, to Cyprus, I think you don't need any other proof that this regime should not have and will not have those capabilities anymore.
Well, I think the proof that everyone is wanting and that we haven't seen yet is what is the imminent threat that we keep hearing about. This director of the National Counterterrorism Center says there was no imminent threat. When you say that the United States, Israel have capable intelligence agencies, and when we hear the word imminent, what does that actually mean? What is this imminent threat?
So for us, it's very clear. We all can agree that Iran obtained very impressive ballistic missile capabilities, with the technology and with the numbers. They're trying to compete with the superpower on the amount of ballistic missiles. So that's a given. And we have seen those ballistic missiles, flying all over in the last 2 weeks. The second part is the nuclear capability. We know that they were working on actually acquiring nuclear capability. And the last part would be to actually assemble the warheads to the tip of the ballistic missiles. So that's, when you get to that moment, you cannot wait, because the other option would wake up one morning, exactly like what happened with North Korea, that one morning they announced that they have ballistic missiles and they have been able to actually assemble nuclear warheads on them. We decided that with Iran, with this regime, we are not waiting for that moment. And that's why it was imminent, and that's why it was the right decision.
So when you say that there's an imminent attack, we knew that they were building nuclear capabilities, what intelligence are you referring to? Because US intelligence is saying that that threat was not imminent. In fact, they were not building a nuclear weapon.
Well, I don't know on what intelligence you are relying, Yalda.
I'm relying here on the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who spoke to lawmakers in March of 2025. And then I'm also referring to the Senate intelligence briefings given to senators that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. That's after the 12-day war. And then they continued that intelligence hasn't changed. And I'm also referring on the 2nd of March to the IAEA Director General, Rafael Grossi, who said that we don't see a structured program to manufacture nuclear weapons.
Yalda, I will not share with you the intelligence we have, but I can share with you what is public. And what is public, that Iran enriched uranium above 60%. Why? I'm not familiar with any other nation in the world that has a peaceful program that enriched uranium on that level. So why they are doing it? Second, why they are hiding those facilities in bunkers, beneath mountains, spending hundreds of millions to hide the facilities. And third, when you look at the warning of the regime, we tend to believe them. So when you see a nation that is enriching uranium to that level, that is hiding the facilities, not allowing any inspectors to come, and threatening to use it,
you don't want to share.
We believe them.
You don't want to share the intelligence. The Trump administration doesn't want to share the intelligence, but the intelligence community in the United States is saying that there wasn't the threat of them building nuclear.
I just ask you, how can anyone, and maybe you can do that for the audience.
Well, but it's not my job. I mean, I'm asking you as an Israeli official what intelligence there is when you're saying that they posed an imminent threat. But I also just want to point to...
But I have to conclude my point. No one in the world can explain the behavior of Iran with a nuclear program. No one.
I just want to quote you, this new report that's come out about Britain's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, who attended the final talks between the US and Iran. The judgment he made was that some of the concessions that Iran was making was significant to prevent the rush to war. So if those talks were going well, if we're hearing that, there wasn't potentially an imminent threat, why then this war?
Yalda, it's so simple. It's black and white. You have those people in different administrations, in different countries, that tend to believe the Iranians. For years, when they signed the JCPOA,
Britain's
they
National
believed them.
Security Advisor?
Wait, let me finish. When they signed the JCPOA, they believed them. They supported that. When they saw that the inspectors are not allowed to come to the sites, they ignored it. And even now, they say we are seeing different signs. And on the other end, you have leaders like President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu and many others who do not believe the Iranians, who think that they are lying to the world.
I mean, we're simply
asking
for
deception.
So the intelligence
one should
here.
decide where he stands, whether he wants to believe the Iranians. And you know what? After I see them sending ballistic missiles not to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but to Abu Dhabi, to Doha, to Manama, to Cyprus, to Turkey, I think many countries today actually believe us more than before.
This is after the attacks that were launched on Iran. They weren't launching this attack on the Gulf states before. This happened after.
But it shows you the intention of this regime.
Attacks were launched.
Why and I'm attacking the Gulf countries? How can one explain this behavior? But I will tell you that we are not taking those chances. History has taught us that when you have a radical regime who threatens the existence of the Jewish people, we take it seriously. So when the Iranian regime actually threatened to destroy us and to build the ring of fire against us, we took it seriously. And now you want to argue whether we should wait. I want to ask you, until when you want us to wait? Until they launch the missile with a warhead, a ballistic warhead, with a nuclear warhead, or until they assemble it, Or until when? We decided that it's enough. Once we saw the intentions, the ballistic missiles, the nuclear capabilities, we are not waiting for the next stage. And I think by doing so, we're making the lives of many people in Europe and the US much safer, not only the one in the Middle East.
That's what your assessment is, and we haven't seen the intelligence that you're talking about because you say you don't want to present it. But the question now is, we're seeing Gulf states targeted, this war escalating, we're seeing the death toll rise, key infrastructure being hit, so the global economy is being targeted. We're seeing humanitarian crisis in Lebanon, for example, with 1 million people displaced. How does this end and where does this end? Because you're talking about the tactical decisions that Israel has made, and I'm quoting you the intelligence of all of these different agencies. And I wonder, though, strategically, where does this end?
So we are moving forward. We are degrading the capabilities of this regime. We are degrading the capability of the proxies of this regime. You mentioned Lebanon. You know, we have no beef with Lebanon. Hezbollah decided to actually attack Israel. And it's up to the Lebanese people and government to decide whether they want to run this country or allow Iran to control the country.
Civilians
we
killed
are a peaceful
and 1 million
nation,
people displaced.
And I think what we are doing now, we are making the world a safer place.
That's Ambassador Danny Danon speaking to me earlier. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, the Taliban threatens retaliation against Pakistan as hundreds are killed in a strike on Kabul. We'll hear from Afghanistan's former president, Hamid Karzai.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
of being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Welcome back to the programme. We've just got some breaking news that's come in the last few minutes. You'll remember that controversy around Senegal during the Africa Cup of Nations when they were playing against Morocco. Well, they've now been stripped of their Africa Cup of Nations title over their misconduct when they walked off during that January final, with Morocco declared 3-0 winners. So Senegal has now been stripped of the Africa Cup of Nations title over their misconduct for walking off during that January final. Now, well, days before America and Israel attacked Iran, another war, which has received far less attention, erupted between Tehran's neighbours Pakistan and Afghanistan. In an airstrike on Monday, the Taliban says more than 400 people were killed at a drug rehabilitation centre in Kabul. Pakistan denies targeting the hospital, but the Norwegian Refugee Council, an independent aid group, says its staff saw hundreds of dead civilians at the site of the attack. Well, today I got some reaction to the escalating conflict from the former president of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai. Have a listen.
The bombardment of our capital yesterday by the Pakistani forces was an extremely unfortunate event in relation between the two countries. Without a doubt, hundreds of people were killed and wounded. I heard the sound, the horrific sound of the bomb itself. It shook our house terribly, badly. And then after about half an hour or so, the whole environment was full of smoke and dust from that bombing. We condemn it in the strongest possible terms for a neighbor to come and bomb another neighbor and civilians and kill them like that. The history of relations between the two countries is such that the government of Pakistan has not been able to live with any Afghan government. They didn't do this well with the governments in the monarchist regime in Afghanistan, and then the Republic, and then subsequently other governments, and then the Republic again. During my time in office, I went there 20 times to seek a better relationship. They didn't respond. And now with the current administration, they're doing the same. So the unfortunate fact is that the government of Pakistan does not wish to have a sensible, reasonable, civilized relationship with Afghanistan. They rely on creating anarchy and weakness and a downtrodden Afghanistan these years in their interest, which is terribly wrong, which I hope they will change their minds and look for a more stable and civilized relationship with Afghanistan.
The Pakistani government claims that the Taliban are harbouring militants that are attacking their soil and attacking Pakistan. And they want this resolved. They want, the claims that they're making that there are terrorists operating on Afghan soil, for the Taliban government to stop doing that. Do they have a point?
Well, if they have an issue with the Taliban government on this account, what was the issue with the Republic? What was the issue with the government before that? What was the issue with the government before that? No. Pakistan is suffering the consequences of its own policies of promoting and using extremism and radicalism to weaken Afghanistan and to impose its will on Afghanistan. That fired back. It's now engulfed in its own Frankenstein that it nurtured and created. We wish well to Pakistan. We want them to be a good country, a stable country, a peaceful country. But they must not keep on doing the terrible things that they're doing in Afghanistan and then keep blaming Afghanistan for it.
On the rehabilitation centre, I visited there, this facility. The Pakistani authorities deny that the number of people that the Taliban claim that were killed. They say it wasn't 400. And they also say it was a military installation that they targeted. Just your response to that.
That is not right. The entire international media has reported in the past, 24 hours. The number of casualties are extremely high. They're into the hundreds. Even if there are a few, why should people be killed? So no, there was a bombing. I witnessed it myself. The people of Kabul have witnessed it. The international media have witnessed it. They cannot deny that this happened, and a hospital, a rehabilitation center, was attacked with bombs and with heavy, heavy bombs.
How concerned are you about the fact that we're seeing war in Iran and Afghanistan destabilized and Pakistan and, the Afghan Taliban at war with each other? How worried are you about this impacting the entire region?
It is extremely sad and dangerous. Afghanistan is a close neighbor with Iran. Iran and Afghanistan share thousands of years of civilization, a common language and history and culture. And during the Republic, where there was this massive American presence in Afghanistan, Iran conducted itself very, very well with Afghanistan. It did not stop at all, rather they engaged very well. And the Americans understood as well that we were neighbors with Iran. We wish the Iranian people well. We wish them peace and stability and well-being. We wish our Arab brothers in the Gulf the best of a good life. And we wish excellent relationship between the United States and America. And that's what we seek. And that's what our advice is. With Pakistan, it's our neighbor. We have to live together. My advice to Pakistan leadership, again, is please conduct yourself in a civilized way with Afghanistan. Please stop the approaches that did not work in the past 4 decades, and it will not work into the future. So let's begin on a different platform of a civilized relationship. Let's conduct ourselves like the Europeans are doing now. In spite of the differences that they had historically, those countries are now good and prosperous and have developed a model of coexistence. That's what Pakistan should do, and that is our advice, and it will continue to be our advice.
Hamid Karzai, the former president of Afghanistan, speaking to me earlier. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, is Scotland set to become the first part of the UK to legalise assisted dying? We'll be live in Hollywood ahead of a key vote.
Well, hello, and thank you for watching The Wrap every night of the week. We will be joined by the very best commentators to explain the how and the why.
This cannot stand.
Stupid thing to do.
He did know what he was doing.
You can expect more analysis.
This is going to get deeper. I think it's going to end up with Russia.
Is war inevitable?
What he's interested in is a deal.
That doesn't rule out strikes.
I disagree.
And laughs along the way. Plus, a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Wrap. Everything wrapped up for you from 10.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Let's focus now on what could be a significant development much closer to home. MSPs at Holyrood are preparing to vote on whether to allow assisted dying for terminally ill adults. If the bill passes, Scotland will become the first part of the UK to legalise assisted dying. Well, let's go to our Scotland correspondent, Conor Gillies, who joins me there from Holyrood. And Conor, I mean, it's been an emotionally charged debate ahead of this historic vote.
Yeah, that's right, Yalda, and we are expecting the vote any minute now. This was Scotland's Parliament confronting one of the most profound moral questions it has ever faced. The most consequential vote in the history of Holyrood is due to take place in the next few minutes. Should assisted dying be legalised in Scotland? If this Parliament votes yes, then Scotland will become the first nation in the UK to do so. In the last few minutes, we have been hearing wrapping up arguments from the MSP who has brought forward this bill, Liam MacArthur from the Liberal Democrats, and he has said in the last few seconds, Yalda, the Chamber may well vote against, saying he believed they would come to regret it. So does he believe that he doesn't have the numbers to get this over the line? Well, that vote is due to happen imminently, and campaigners have been descending here at the foot of Scottish Power at Holyrood across the course of today, making their final pitches to the politicians who have been voting or are due to vote and have been debating over the course of the last few hours. Supporters of this bill saying this is about choice, dignity, compassion. Critics saying this is a dangerous, perilous moment for Scotland. Vulnerable people, they say, will be pressurised. That noise there is MSPs being rallied together for that crunch vote. And also those critics say that the focus should instead be on improving end-of-life care. As I said, these moments of this vote are due to happen. We'll bring it to you live here on Sky News, so stay tuned.
Conor, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. And as Conor said, a highly emotional, highly charged debate taking place. And we're just minutes away from that historic final vote that's going to take place. As soon as that happens, we will be bringing that to you live here on Sky News. Well, that's all from us on The World Tonight. The Wrap is next. We'll be back tomorrow at 9. Anna coming up shortly. See you then.